Hello and welcome to Courage in Action, our afternoon plenary featuring the 2023 John P. McNulty Prize winners. To start things off, please join us in welcoming 3 McNulty Foundation Catalyst Fund recipients to the stage: Ajay Nair, Michelle Molitor, and Jaime Zabla Siri.
Over 55 million people fall under the poverty line in India each year because of healthcare expenditure. We have normalized a sort of healthcare apartheid in the country with an incredibly fragmented system that is very opaque and stratified by class, by price, by quality. At Swasth, we are building a messaging protocol and a network to connect every last point of care in the country, every lab, every pharmacy, every clinic, every hospital, with every source of financing for healthcare, integrating the health system. And we're doing this not using proprietary technology, but we're using a community-driven, open source approach with an open source protocol and an open community that'll keep evolving this. At the Action Forum this year, I pledge to scale this network to cover most of India's payers, and more importantly, the public health benefits system, which covers 500 million of the poorest Indians in the next 2 years. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michelle Molitor. I'm the founder and executive director of the Equity Lab, a nonprofit based in Washington, D.C., focused on helping individuals and organizations work on their most intractable issues related to racial equity and social justice. My Pahara project was to co-create a fellowship called Seeding Disruption. Seeding Disruption brings together senior leaders from cross-sector to work on the most intractable problems in our city. In Washington, D.C., that's bringing together leaders who are working in education, in healthcare, in housing, in food apartheid, bringing them together to come up with new solutions. We have had 8 cohorts so far of adults and 2 cohorts of youth activators, and all in Washington, D.C. And my pledge and commitment is to expand our work and our coalition to 10 new locations in community with them by the year 2025.
Hi, I'm Jaime. I'm from El Salvador. I'm a Cali 8 fellow, and my project is La Factoría Ciudadana. It's a project that we're helping people previously involved in violence that come from 3 different sectors: those who come from jail, those who've been deported, and those that are formerly involved in gangs. So, as you may know, El Salvador is going through this state of exception that the government has implemented. Over 60,000 people have been put in jail in the last year, just because they were either former gang members, active gang members, or family of those. There's mothers, there's brothers inside jail. Jail is never the solution. So, this is like a big giant who's sleeping, and he's sleeping right in front of a door that the door is incubating violence, more violence than we ever expected. So what is my pledge? We have acquired a land on loan in Colón, which is one of the most violent municipalities in the country. That land is going to be turned into a coffee plantation, and we're going to provide jobs for this population. For over 180 families, complete families. So that's my goal for the next year. Thank you.
And now, please welcome to the stage Henry Crown Fellow, Aspen Institute trustee, CEO of HOPE, and 2013 McNulty Prize winner, Bill Bynum.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Well, you could just drop the mic on those commitments. That was so awesome. Thank you. You know, look at this. This is such a beautiful room. You do not see rooms like this everywhere, and that's one of the things that is so special about this group that we're a part of. Great to see friends, old, new friends, soon to be friends. I want to thank Ann and the McNulty Foundation for inviting me to help celebrate this year's McNulty Prize winners, the latest in a long line of transformational world changers. Congratulations to you all. Look forward to working with you and to seeing what you do in the future. What you've already done is pretty awesome. You know, I've been asked to reflect a bit on my journey as a Henry Crown Fellow, as a McNulty Prize winner, almost probably 30-ish years affiliation with the Aspen Institute. It's been a while, and it's been awesome. I'm also going to talk a little bit, maybe channel a little bit from my favorite Martin Luther King book, Where Do We Go From Here? You know, here is a long way from where I was back in the early 90s when I first came across Aspen in one of its policy programs, self-employment learning program. I was running one of the largest micro-business programs in the United States, and that was my introduction to Aspen. Fast forward to 1998, and one of my board members nominated me to be a part of this thing called the Henry Crown Fellowship. He had been blown away by his experience in the executive seminar, and he nominated me, and so I had no clue what a Henry Crown Fellow might be. I was I was selected to the second class, the Millennium class, and you all have heard the story about the dog. You know, you've seen dogs when they catch the bus. You know, they say, now what do you do with it? So that's kind of how I felt when I became a Henry Crown Fellow, because I was in this room with corporate CEOs, with financial wheelers and dealers from Wall Street and from Chicago and LA, and technology wizards, we call them wireheads, from Silicon Valley that were transforming the way the economy worked through technology. And I was this wet behind the ears CEO from a nonprofit in the Mississippi Delta. I felt like, a fish out of water. I was a dog, I caught the bus. But it very quickly became clear that these fellows were not just professionally strong, they were just as committed as I was to making the world a better place and using their positions to make life more just and equitable for those who did not realize the benefits that so many do. And so I decided to not only get on the bus, but if you're on the bus, why not steer it? Why not help drive it? And so I decided to tap into the expertise and the innovation and the commitment and maybe steer a little bit of that toward the Deep South, the places, Alabama Black Belt, the Mississippi Delta, some of the most economically distressed parts of this country. And so I did. And what a ride it did. What a ride it was. We actually did get on the bus. Some of my classmates during our first reunion got on a bus and drove to Clarksdale, Mississippi, where we painted a Booker T. Washington Elementary School in Clarksdale, Mississippi. We equipped a new computer lab, and of course, in true Aspen Henry Crown fashion, we had a good time that evening. We went to Morgan Freeman's juke joint and danced the night away. You get all work and no fun. That doesn't work. But we made a lot of progress, and we kept on working together. A few months later, I bribed some of my classmates, Chinwe Onyegoro, Mark Contreras, Peter Riling, Chinwe Onyegoro, and others, to come to New Orleans. It's easy to bribe somebody to a dinner in New Orleans. And so they came to New Orleans, and I wanted them to critique my plans for expanding my work at Hope Credit Union. We had a common experience. We had built a bond of trust through our time together here and through our experience as fellows. And I got honest, sometimes brutally honest, and insightful feedback that I could not have gotten from anywhere else. So that was invaluable, and it gave me the push, the courage that I needed to move forward. And so I shouldn't have been surprised a few years ago when, after George Floyd, after the pandemic, after the social unrest that blanketed this country, my classmate Reed Hastings made a commitment for Netflix to put 5% of their cash holdings into depository institutions run or owned by people of color. And the first $10 million deposit was in Hope Credit Union, the credit union that I started in Jackson, Mississippi. Soon other friends and fellows from Aspen followed suit, making deposits, opening doors. Suzanne Orr Johnson, John Rogers, Scott Ullum, Gabby Green, Ann McNulty, so many. Yesterday I met Cheryl Green, who runs the Youth Fellow Program, and I found that she's been a Hope Credit Union member for over a dozen years. You know, you just never know where you find partners, but you're more likely to find them in this room around these people. Last month, a group of the largest companies and banks in the country made good on a commitment to put $1 billion in minority depository institutions to advance financial inclusion. By importing capital into capital-starved areas, over the past several years, Hope has driven over $4 billion in financing to help 2 million people in some of the most economically distressed parts of this country. Today, Hope Credit Union, my Henry Crown Fellows Project, is the, if not the, one of the largest Black and women-owned financial institutions in the United States. That started here on this mountain. And it would not have happened without a spark from my class up here in 1998. So where do we go from here? That was the name of the last book that Dr. King wrote before he was assassinated. And in it, he charged us to come together to fight poverty and to increase equal opportunity. You know, more than anything, people are the sum of our relationships. You know, until I was preparing these remarks, I really hadn't come to grips with what an impact the Henry Crown Fellowship, the McNulty Prize, the Aspen ecosystem has had on the course of my life and my career. And I'm sure many of you have experienced this and are way ahead of me, but I think it's worthy of a reminder. I urge you to take full advantage of this room, this engine, this ecosystem. We cannot afford to take for granted or waste this rare resource that only a small fraction of the world's population has at their disposal. You're not only uniquely privileged by education, wealth, professional, and social networks. Few networks are as diverse as the room you're in now. Look at this room. You just do not find, I do not see this every day. This is a rare, precious resource, and we cannot waste it, particularly in an increasingly diverse world and an increasingly divided world. Your leadership, your commitment is more important than ever. The future is in our hands. The future is in your hands. It's not in the hands of politicians or companies. You know, it is in your hands. The cavalry is not coming over the mountain, over the horizon to save us. You are the cavalry. The cavalry is us, folks. We are the cavalry. So we all caught the bus. We caught the bus. Now let's drive it. Let's drive it and pick up, let's lift up our neighbors, those people who opportunity so often passes by. We caught the bus. Let's drive it to a better, a more just future. It's on us, folks. Let's take advantage of this resource. Thank you so much. You know, now it is more than an honor and a privilege to welcome to the podium one of the most transformational, inspiring leaders that I've had the privilege to meet, the one and the only Ann Welsh McNulty. You know, oh, wait, I'm not done with you yet. No, not only have I come to appreciate her as a colleague on the Board of Trustees, she is invaluable in making sure that we stay, we pay attention to the numbers, and as the chair of the Audit Committee, she keeps us in check. She has done so much for this country, for her alma mater, Villanova University, where she founded the Women's Leadership Institute. She formed the Leadership Center at Wharton, but most of us know her best for the incredible work that the McNulty Foundation and her team and her amazing team has done over the past 15 years. I can't believe it's been 15 years, but we have all been the beneficiary of it. And if you all get half the value that I've gotten out of this relationship, it'll be awesome. You know, we've all seen the incredible impact that she's had over the years on supporting individuals. I've seen it personally. And on top of this, she's a fantastic dancer. You should have been at a birthday party. So, Ann, thank you for being a supporter, a mentor, a wonderful colleague, a dear friend, a trailblazer, and a gift that keeps on giving. Thank you, Ann.
Well, thank you, Bill. You have inspired us so much over the years and really made us appreciate how much providing credit is really the lifeblood for individuals and for communities. You know, really one of the most critical things that we can do and appreciate. And what you've done there has been amazing. And you have also been such a good friend over all these years to me and my family. So today is really, for us at the McNulty Foundation and my family, one of our happiest days of the year. It's really a great joy for us. And it's wonderful to see so many familiar faces. I'm going to put my glass on to make sure I don't forget somebody. So Dele, Jay, Manoj, Hildegard, Alejandro, Shri, Hope, Bruce, Navin, and Cody. And I love being here with all of you again. As many of you know, we started giving the John P. McNulty Prize 15 years ago, after my husband John died suddenly. At that moment, this community embraced me and bolstered my spirit at a time when I most needed it. And it has ever since. Sorry. This prize has given my children and me the chance to celebrate and to remember John's energy and his Irish charisma. I was thinking of that yesterday during David White's talk. Who he was so much about his story and his family's story, and he always delighted in it. John's parents grew up in Ireland. When his dad, Charles, was only 8 years old, his dad passed away. So Charlie had to drop out of school and help to support his younger brothers and sisters. And at age 18, Charlie emigrated to the United States and worked for many years as a landscaper. The even better story is that John's mom, Nora, worked as a housekeeper for a partner in a Wall Street firm. That was a detail John loved, since later, as the son of that housekeeper, he became a partner in a Wall Street firm. John knew that circumstance and opportunity had made such a difference between what he could achieve and what his parents could achieve. For him, the American dream was real. Now, John always had a gut-level reaction to barriers that kept people from realizing their potential. So recently I ran into a guy, actually a very successful guy, who had worked for him years ago. And he told me, I don't know if John saw the greatness in me or if John created it, but he certainly made me believe in it. So that was John. He had a unique, sometimes relentless way of probing your story, of asking you questions about where you had been and where you were going. He made you understand the urgency of you seeing your path until you realized that you had no choice but to follow it. And he didn't leave it there. He was forever your champion. So we started the John P. McNulty Prize to honor his irrepressible belief in others. And the prize now champions those bold individuals who feel they have no choice but to follow their path. So today we are celebrating 3 leaders for their determination and their ability to affect change. Now, the prize is not just about those who we recognize. It's really about the values of everyone in this room. It's about what we all strive for. As you will see with this year's 3 honorees, they know in their gut that, yes, we can take on dirty, complex environmental problems. Yes, there is room for people from every background to move up and to succeed. And yes, it is possible to provide mental health care to all who need it. This year's McNulty Prize winners give us a boost of much-needed hope and optimism. So thanks. My children, Johnny and Bryn, will now introduce them to you.
Hi, I'm Johnny McNulty, and it's been my good fortune to be a small part of this process now for 15 years. And all of us at the McNulty Foundation, April, Nina, Abiola, Sophie, and by the way, that's it, that's all of us, have been honored to develop a deep partnership with this community. We have had the privilege of shining a light on over 50 individuals and their organizations in 23 countries, and in more areas of work and geographies than we could ever hope to reach on our own. We at the McNulty Foundation have had the chance to write about them, create dozens of micro-documentaries, author leadership case studies, and most recently produce a series in the Stanford Social Innovation Review on the pivotal moments of their leadership journeys and how we can all support and sustain a movement of moral leadership. In the past few years, we've expanded not just our prize funding, but funding for fellows across the Aspen Fellowships and across the life cycle of their organizations. This year, we have made substantial investments through the Global Impact Fund, and we are excited to continue growing our efforts with Aspen to support these leaders and to knit together this one-of-a-kind ecosystem. The discussions you all are sharing, the examples you provide one another, and the cross-pollination of this fellowship breeds new and better-honed ideas and the encouragement and motivation to do more. We are so honored to be a small part of catalyzing the amazing force that you represent. Thank you for all that you do and for letting us be partners in this journey. My sister Bryn will now introduce this year's McNulty Prize winners. For each, we will watch a short film that takes us to their worlds, and then we will hear from each of them on stage. And afterwards, they will join Stace Lindsay up here for a short dialogue. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I'm Bryn McNulty, and I have the easiest job of anyone and the pleasure to introduce this year's winners. Before I do, I'm going to go off script and just say how special it is for me to get the kind of unfair privilege of being amongst such an incredible group of leaders, doers, changers, and as Bill said, bus drivers every year. By pure luck of being my mom's daughter and getting to partake in this. So thank you all for enveloping me in this family and letting us join in the journey of what you're doing to change the world. So, on to the exciting announcements. First, for revolutionizing mental health care delivery and proving that grandmothers can be effective therapists for communities, Dixon Chibanda and Friendship Bench. Let's learn a little bit more.
In my country, there are 90 psychiatrists for a population of approximately 14 million people, and I'm one of them. 90% of those needing mental health services are not able to get those services. When I lost my patients to suicide, that struck the core of my very being. Erica was supposed to come to me, but didn't have the $15 bus fare. Her death made me realize that there was a need to actually take mental health to the community. I started exploring ways of making evidence-based therapy not only accessible, but also affordable. In Zimbabwe, the grandmothers are the custodians of local culture, wisdom, and knowledge, which makes them the perfect therapists in communities. That was the beginning of the Friendship Bench.
Vamwe vanhu avazivi kuti pfungwa dzinorwara chaita kuti munhu azosvika pakudaro kushaya munhu wekukurukura naye.
Makadiko anambuya.
Tiripo makadiwo.
Friendship Bench is therapy delivered by trained community grandmothers. After 4 to 6 sessions, people are invited to join a support group where they continue to problem solve.
Chinangwa chako ndichii?
Pamagariro.
Takadzidziswa kutora munhu sezvaari. Momutora kana akauya zvaari usamudzikisire.
The terms we use at Friendship Bench resonate with local culture. Kuvura pfungwa, which is opening the mind, kusimudzira, which is to uplift, and kusimbisa, which literally means to strengthen. That's how we've managed to remove stigma from the work that we do. We put together a controlled trial to bring together real evidence. We showed a statistically significant difference between therapy provided by a grandmother on a bench versus therapy provided by a doctor and a nurse. We've gone on to publish well over 100 peer-reviewed scientific publications around Friendship Bench. Our approach completely disrupts the current thinking about therapy. We have replicated the model in over 6 countries outside of Zimbabwe. This is a solution that can close the mental health gap around the world because it's evidence-based, it's simple, it's cost-effective.
Asi pandakagara nemi pabench ndakabva ndanzokera panzvimbo ndinobva ndaona kuti ini ndiri munhu anokosha ndinofanira kuva munhu uye anova munhu anogara aine vanhu pamwoyo community yako pamwoyo.
The grandmothers were the first people I opened up to about my struggles and pain around Erica's death. That was the first time I felt this sense of relief. Imagine if we could create a global network of grandmothers in every major city in the world. It sounds grandiose. It might not be possible during my lifetime, but that's our goal.
Thank you, thank you. The World Health Organization tells us that depression, loneliness, and suicide are a global epidemic. Now, when you look at the age groups between 15 and 25, today, a leading cause of death is suicide. To make matters worse, we actually don't have enough professionals to manage the millions of people who need mental health care. Now, let me just share another piece of statistic to put things into context as to where we're coming from with my work. By the year 2030, which is literally in 7 years' time, 1 in 6 people in the world will be aged 65 and above.
What my team and I have been doing for the last decade is leverage, harness the lived experience, the wisdom, the knowledge of this group, a group that has the battle scars of life. Now, in a nutshell, what we do is train community grandmothers in the basics of cognitive behavioral therapy. We allocate them a wooden park bench in their community. We facilitate referrals to the bench using social media and other existing organizations in the community, and people receive therapy. We have over 100 peer-reviewed scientific publications and a number of clinical trials that actually show that these grandmothers are a lot more effective in alleviating symptoms of depression than psychiatrists like myself. So what we've done in the past 10 years is consolidate the evidence and knowledge that we have accumulated over the years and repackaged it in a small little box that we call the Friendship Bench in a Box, which is literally a DIY kit which will enable anyone, anywhere in the world to do what we do. As we go deep for fidelity at scale as an organization, our strategy is to translate the toolkit to over 100 languages, because we have seen that in every community, in every culture, there's a grandmother who is able to deliver Friendship Bench. And through that strategy, we can truly narrow the care gap for mental health issues. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dixon. And I also want to give a shout out to April, the director of the foundation, and the team for these phenomenal videos, which make it so easy for all of us to understand the powerful work that is being done. For our next winner, for rallying communities to tackle the global plastic crisis with a multifaceted approach, including technology, advocacy, and education, Marea Verde and Marea Verde. Let's learn a little bit more.
It has been scientifically proven that they have found plastic in our blood, in our lungs, even in our breast milk. What do we do about that? Around the world, we produce approximately 400 million tons of new plastic in a year, but that will increase to 1.2 billion. That garbage ends up in rivers, and if it's in our rivers, it goes to our oceans. And so we started thinking about interventions in rivers, as well as piloting initiatives to improve our community. That's how Marea Verde started. My whole adult life has been dedicated to the environment and leadership. In government, I had the opportunity to travel all of Panama, and I fell in love with my country. But it made me very aware that government entities don't really have a clear roadmap on how to address or how to bring solutions.
You can see we're getting the same problem.
When I left my term in government, I stumbled upon a meeting of neighbors that were worried about the amount of garbage in the coasts and oceans. We wanted to take action in our local issues, but that were a global problem. Little steps turned into bigger steps, and now here we are. At Marea Verde, we see everything interconnected. One action will not solve all of the problem.
Que ahí viene toda la basura.
Wanda is our clean energy machine. The water wheel uses the hydraulic power from the river. We have proven that Wanda can effectively pick up 80 to 85% of that floating garbage. We're using artificial intelligence and machine learning to identify the types of trash that we collect in order to influence better policies and better communications and better education tools for our communities. But if we only prevent garbage from getting to the oceans, we're not really solving this problem. We need to work with government, we need to work with communities, and we need to work with children because they will be tomorrow's leaders. We started visiting communities upstream from Wanda, and with help of community members like Astevia, we are getting the word out.
Es hora de que nosotros hagamos una contención desde acá para que eso no llegue a Wanda ni llegue al mar. El Billy Truck es ese mecanismo que nos ha proporcionado Marea Verde. Yo he ido comunicándole a cada uno y ellos han ido motivándose poco a poco y tenemos que hacer algo.
Every place is different, every river is different, every community is different, and so our ambition is to provide ideas of proven actions that can be replicated around the world that can help alleviate this plastic crisis.
Buenos días.
We, the people, are the problem of this crisis. We need to find solutions together. You have to have commitment and conviction. Everybody can make a difference. I'd like to know who has had fish in the last week here. You probably all ate plastic with that meal. 95% of our sea life has been impacted by plastic, and most of that plastic comes from rivers. Just in this hour that we're sharing here together, the equivalent of 60 truckloads of plastics will enter the oceans. That is 900 tons of plastic. And by the year 2050, we will have more plastics than fish in the ocean. This is a huge, complex, global problem that's affecting every single one of us. In Marea Verde, we have devised this holistic approach to try to address this global plastic pollution problem. Holistic because we understand that there's no one single action that can solve this problem. Our approach consists of 3 different components. The first one is stopping the plastic from reaching the oceans. We do that by implementing capture devices in rivers that can stop this efflux of plastics to the ocean. Up to 80 to 85% of this plastic is detained. Since we started, we've collected over 1.5 million pounds of plastic. And it's a much more efficient way than trying to fish out the plastic from the ocean or picking it up from beach cleanups. Our second component is collecting information, because there is very little information on our local rivers, on how the garbage gets to these rivers, and how it's affecting our ecosystems. We use a different number of techniques and technologies to collect this information. We use AI, drones, satellite images, surveys, and we share it with our stakeholders. Having good information is key to making good decisions and to keeping the topic relevant. Our third component is outreach and behavior change, because this is a social problem with environmental consequences. And we all need and we all must change our behaviors to really fix this problem. That's why our community programs are geared toward facilitating the adoption of more sustainable behaviors. In our world, we have over 100,000 rivers. Many of these rivers are feeding plastic into the ocean every single minute. By scaling our approach, we will be able to have a huge impact in mitigating ocean plastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Marea. And our third winner, for equipping first-gen and low-income college students with the skills, confidence, and networks to get a job worthy of their degrees and have a real shot at economic mobility, Ami, Eubanks, and Braven. Let's see what it's all about.
If you go to college, you come out, you're set economically for the rest of your life. That is not true. People have started to say, is it even possible to have the American dream anymore? Young people who are first in their families to go to college on the Pell Grant will likely come out of college and earn 66 cents on the dollar to their higher income peers. If they're Black and a woman, they're often earning 50 cents, which is really frightening. That never goes away. And what we've seen in the world of Braven is that it's a solvable problem. Good morning, Hudson. Gotta get up, gotta get up. Hudson. All right, let's go. Whatever I'm doing for my kids, however I'm helping them maneuver into their greatest selves.
Have a good day.
That's what I'm hoping for everyone else's young person, especially those that come from more humble beginnings. So this is the first house on the south side of the city of Chicago. I grew up in some of the most economically disadvantaged neighborhoods, but it was like we were the Jeffersons, so we're just moving on up. And that was really clear, from going from a 2-flat to a single-family home to a home in the suburbs. It's how I view the world of the Braven student, is that they should have that opportunity that actually sets them on a track of economic mobility and truly reaching the American dream like my family did.
It was instilled in me from my mother that education was the key to have a better life. ¿Quieres fruta, Claudia? Sí. She came to America to help me and my family get that education. When I was in college, I thought my background meant nothing to employers. No one needs to know about my personal obstacles. No one needs to know that my mom cleans houses, my dad paints houses.
Okay, mi niña, bye.
I love you. Love you. I thought they weren't going to see me as their peer or a potential colleague. And that's where Braven comes in.
Braven helps students who are first in their families to go to college. It's a course, and we partner with employers to actually have leadership coaches from their worlds come in and coach students to make sure that they're on track to leave college and enter the workforce strong.
Braven allowed me to communicate my story in a way where the employer realized I had grit and I was very hardworking. And we are here. I was hired at Crow and I was quickly promoted to a senior consultant. That only happened because Braven allowed me to develop that skill set of project managing, communicating with clients, and problem solving.
The reason I know Braven is working is because the data does not lie. 75% of our students out-earn their parents in 5 semesters. So it's very clear that they are coming out stronger on the back end.
Hello, and welcome to my house tour.
I was able to purchase this home by myself. Master bedroom. There's a deck area. That's the kitchen. And to have my own home is to feel that I made it.
Mira todo lo que tienes, mira todo lo que has hecho. En tu vida. I'm so proud of you.
If Braven could be a resource for every college, I really believe that we could actually see the wealth gap in this country shrink. Regardless of where your starting point is, your ending point can be somewhere different.
It is so surreal to be here tonight in this room of doers and dreamers and the people who have been charged by the Aspen Institute and our fellowships to create the good society. I have to say, it was 10 short years ago when I was with my cohort in a seminar room And out of my mouth came, I really believe that we've got to figure out how to get 10,000 or so students on the path to economic freedom post-college. Because what we were seeing is that all of the work that we had done together in K-12 was actually not netting out on the back end what we thought was going to happen with the college degree. Myself included, we were encouraging them to go after the mountain to college, to climb it. There was a cliff on the back end, and we, myself included, were shackling them with debt. And that debt was not going to go away. And together with my cohort and others, we really started to think about what could a new model be for preparing first-generation, low-income students for the workforce after college. And so what we did was innovate and actually create a model that had never existed before, where we're inside of higher education as a credit-bearing course, where students have the time and the space to take the course, but also they don't have to pay any additional money for the course. We also then decided to build a bridge over to the world of employers. And so many of you in this room have been a part of that bridge, where we asked them to have their talent coach the students while they were in the course and beyond, and be professional mentors and do mock interviews. And basically what we did together was we created a new network for this group of young people so that they had a fair shot just like their higher income peers. And that has given me so much fuel. As you can see from Claudia's story, we've worked with over 7,400 students. I believe that we can reach 80 to 100,000 young people here in the US. We've started to get asked questions about going globally. I'm not sure that will work, but who knows? What I know is we've figured out how to go from higher ed and into the world of employers. And what I know is that here, there are 1.2 million young people that we have to be charged to help get to that next level of breaking the economic sound barrier in 5 semesters. So what I see is that the American dream, the American promise, all that we have done together to make it possible for there to be economic freedom in this country, that as a community, we are going to do that together, and what we are working on here is a solvable problem. Thank you.
As we reset the stage for a panel discussion with the 2023 McNulty Prize winners, please welcome to the stage Henry Crown Fellow and Senior Moderator for the Aspen Global Leadership Network, Stace Lindsay.
Good afternoon. How is that for a remarkable cohort of winners? One more round of applause. And while they're getting ready, just to frame this next session, I know many of the fellows look at the McNulty Prize winners and think, I could never. And part of the goal for this discussion this afternoon is actually to get not into the models that they all have, the remarkable vision and models, but how did they come to achieve what they've achieved? What are the leadership, or I love this morning from Starsky, what's the servant lessons we can take away? So let me invite back up to the stage Marea, Dixon, and Ami. And we're going to just have an open conversation. Marea, Dixon, Ami, welcome to the stage again.
Thank you.
I would love just to have a conversation with you to unpack a little bit about the story behind the story. So I've got only 3 questions. We have about 15 minutes, so we're going to be kind of tight on this one. But Marea, starting with you, I've known you for almost, I don't know how long, a long time, 20 years or so. And you've been involved in the environment forever. You've had many different roles, many different puestos. What is it that actually led to you saying, this is the thing I'm going to bet on?
Well, I think it came out after leaving my 2nd term in government, having worked in many of the same environmental challenges I had faced 20 years before, having worked in setting global goals, national policies, and realizing that I was really not moving the needle very much, especially for citizens in Panama. And I was disheartened by that realization. I was tired of the complaining. I was tired of the criticizing. And I was pretty much giving up, saying, you know, I did my best. I worked really hard. I tried to do all these things. And I think that just made me mindful of the surroundings and the opportunities that allowed me to think global, act local, and seize those when they come up.
Okay, and what is it that happened to make this opportunity come up? So if you're mindful, you're seeing opportunities, you're thinking local, what actually happened?
It was literally my backyard. It's the topic of pollution that we see everywhere, but we don't see it because it's everywhere. And setting out to do something about that, and how to act, how to make a difference, how to be that local partner that, in my position in government, in my position as a policymaker or decision maker, I would have liked to have on the other end.
Yeah, great, thank you. Dixon, 19 psychiatrists in a population of 14 million people. That had to be a bit overwhelming. You mentioned in the video the story of Erica, and I know in our conversations that Erica's death had a big impact on you. Tell us a little bit about the impact and then what you did to recover and how this idea of the friendship bench came to be.
Sure, thanks. You know, every psychiatrist's worst nightmare is receiving that call to say your patient has taken their own life by suicide. It's a sign of failure. It's, you know, it just sinks in that you failed to deliver, and that's how I felt when Erica took her own life. You know, you have this cloud of imposter syndrome, and all I wanted to do was remove myself from my clinical duties in the hospital. So Friendship Bench was really almost my way of escaping, removing myself from that trauma, the tragedy of losing Erica.
And let me push a little bit more. So you removed yourself from the trauma of Erica. Where did you go and what did you do?
So when I removed myself, the only alternative I had at the time was to try and do something in the community. You know, I had no clue what I was going to do. And so it was that process of removing myself, that process of, I think, trying to find myself, trying to heal myself from the trauma of having lost Erica, that I stumbled across these 14 grandmothers in the community. And essentially, that's how Friendship Bench started. It started off with these 14 grandmothers who really became an important source of inspiration for me and recovery from Erica's death and the feeling of guilt that I was going through.
Yeah, thank you. We'll come back. I have some follow-up questions for you as well. Ami, how about you? You spent your whole life making a bet that education matters, and then something shifted.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the Braven story really was birthed here at a seminar table with my #engaged cohort. And, you know, really what it was, you know, we had all been in education, in K-12 education, doing educational equity work. And we really had all said, look, if we can get young people to the doors of college, similar to what I had experienced myself and many other people had, like, they're going to be good. We're done. And many of us, so not just me, we're seeing all of these young people go to college, and then all of a sudden, when you started to check in with them later, they just were not where you thought they would be with that college degree. And in my case, and like I said earlier, in other cases as well, I mean, the guilt that you feel, that you also then shackle them with debt, that given how the debt works in this country around college, would never go away. And so it really was sparked here at that moment of saying, you know, we just got to figure out how to do something. And then Jen Holleran, who's here today, literally calls me when I was in the Denver airport when I was in a very senior role at Teach for America, another organization that's had huge impact, and was like, you know, that like idea of yours, I think I know someone who might want to like help fuel it with funding. And literally it just started to take off from there. But I always think of Braven very much so as, you know, a moment in which I was not only galvanized, but I think many other people who had been working on the same problem were. And people just kept helping me out, and this institute has helped tremendously.
Yeah, thank you. So in playing back what I've just heard, you've got a sense of being present, being aware, showing up, of, in your case, needing to remove yourself from the pressure and opening up to a new community, and in your case, revisiting some assumptions that you had. So I want to call those out for all of our fellows thinking about ventures and impact, the importance, and I think David White, I have this image of him yesterday sitting in the coffee shop in Spain and thinking about, he went from that story of the coffee shop to this image of the walls to the door. And it's about being aware, paying attention, listening. What are you perceiving? What are you seeing? And each of the three of you have developed this muscle of awareness, which led you to step forward into this next venture that you've all undertaken. So then the second question is, you decide to step forward, you're going to run into resistance. And all three of you are bucking conventional wisdom. You've got an insight, and the negative pressure that would say, we can't do this, you're dreaming too big, nothing's going to happen, you've all had to overcome. And Dixon, maybe starting with you, what conventional wisdom have you had to buck to make this work?
I had to remove my, as the grandmothers would say, when you're here, remove your psychiatrist hat, because we work differently. You know, coming from the world of psychiatry, obviously I relied on the DSM-5, the ICD-10, and I relied on, you know, making all of these diagnoses, you know, labeling people. And with the grandmothers, it was about storytelling. And that was my first big lesson, that to reach people, you actually have to create space for them to tell stories. Mm-hmm. And ironically, I received the same therapy from the grandmothers when I opened up about Erica, you know, which actually made me learn one very important lesson about, you know, the importance of being comfortable with being vulnerable. You know, this all came from the grandmothers. The other lesson that I picked up from the grandmothers as a psychiatrist was the importance of rooting your work in local context, using indigenous idioms of distress. You know, we don't use any of the words that are defined within the DSM-5, you know. For instance, in my language, we don't talk about depression, we talk about kufungisisa, which literally means thinking too much. That is the equivalent of depression. And we have a lot of terms, and I had to start using that language, you know, in order for me to really release myself and understand how I could help my community.
I love the way he said this yesterday. We were having this conversation. So what kind of conventional wisdom did you have to overcome? He said, I was the conventional wisdom. The establishment, and these grandmothers, I would love to have been a fly on the bench, as it were, listening to these grandmothers help you unlearn so much of what you had learned so that you could actually become more effective and more powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Dixon. Ami, how about you?
Yeah, so I would say two things really stand out for me. One is actually realizing that we didn't realize there was a problem, so the educators who had been working on the issue, and neither did a larger group of people who were usually people helping to fuel amazing nonprofits like Teach for America. And so the first thing was that people really were like, why would you work on this group of young people? Like, they just don't need it, maybe not as worthy. And so that was the first thing, was that first seed money lasted for 2.5 years. It was nail biting. I didn't know if we were gonna keep it going. But then the second thing was also that I had to really think hard about some of the lessons that I had learned in K-12 among incredible social entrepreneurs, that what we were doing had to be built inside of the system. And it had to be carefully built inside of the system, because when I was running the people work at Teach for America, along with a number of other things, we had 50,000 young people applying to the core every year. There were another 30,000 young people applying to our staff every year for 80,000 data points. And I sat in that role for 8 years, and the questions we were asking, and we were seeing our former students trying to actually get into Teach for America to be like Miss Davis, all right, or to be like whoever teacher they had. And we were seeing that they were actually not as strong as they should have been in that application process. And yes, thankfully, Teach for America stepped back and thought about the bias in the model, and I knew we would do that, but so many other companies weren't. And so it really was also this moment of saying, we've got to actually be humble enough to somehow get higher ed to trust us and let us run a course inside, and then also convince employers that we needed their talent to actually coach and mentor and break open their social capital networks for this group of young people. So for every 1,000 young people in the Braven model, there are 17,000 volunteer hours that come in from employers. And just that bridge in those two sectors, that's a very unusual cast of characters to bring together.
Yeah, great. Thanks very much. Marea, how about you?
Well, I felt I really didn't have a lot to lose, but I also knew that I would regret if I didn't try. And because of my experience and perhaps my reputation, I may have had some credibility in what I was trying to do. But what I mostly got was a lot of dismissal on the project we were trying to move forward. And the way we overcame that was surrounding myself with like-minded people, networks, my fellows, my board, my team, that collectively helped to think out of the box, to try new things, that encouraged each other to act, and definitely my faith and the support of my family.
Yeah. Great, thank you. One final question for each of you, and Ami, we'll start with you this time. If you think about, well, first let me just kind of recap what I just heard, because I think it's helpful to make explicit each of them remember Brian Stevenson came a number of years ago, and one of his big challenges to us was get proximate to the pain. And what I'm hearing in each of these stories is they got close to the pain. And they challenged their assumptions. Once they had an insight, they didn't just say, I've got a model that works, that's proven. They actually had to go and revisit, say, what actually is needed locally? And each of the stories that you have is not a story of a top-down vision. I've got the answer, let me go. It is truly the servant leadership. You're listening, you're learning, you're being led by the community, but you've got access to networks and resources to help them. So then the third thing would be, as you reflect on your experience, and what I'm trying to do here, just to be really explicit, is demystify. Every single one of you could become a McNulty Prize winner. This is the secret, is just honor your own sense of who you are as a leader and listen to the communities and the needs. But what advice or insights have you learned that you'd like to pass on to this group?
I think the first one is actually that trust really takes time. We have faced a lot of interesting questions in my philosophy that we should go slow to go fast, to really make sure we understood what would it take for higher ed to actually believe that we could help evolve them just a little bit in terms of how they were thinking about the preparation of young people for the workforce after. And the second thing is, and hopefully, I've made this clear in my earlier remarks, like, this is not about me. This is about a team of people from my cohort and Engage and the Pahara network and this broader network and my family. Like, this is a group and team effort. And I think often people feel like to go, fast is to go alone, but to go far is to go together. And so that's just my advice, is like, get other people around you in this fabulous network to help you think through those stumbling blocks moments.
Fantastic, thank you. Marea?
Words of wisdom. I think 3 things I would like to share. One is showing up with conviction. It's okay to not get it right every time or not get it right ever, but keep showing up, because at some point you will. And I'm not so sure I got it right now either, but I think we're on the right track. The second one is to be mindful so that you can perceive these opportunities that surround you, and that when you're too busy or too into your role, you may not be aware of, and to be willing to step up to those opportunities. And then the third one would be voicing, it takes a village. To tackle global complex problems, you really need people to address it together.
Yeah, thank you. And Dixon, how about you? What insights would you like to pass on?
Yeah, so I think the single most important lesson that I've learned through this journey is actually from the grandmothers, and that is being comfortable with being vulnerable.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all 3 for sharing your insight and wisdom. One more round of applause for our laureate. And Thank you all very much. What I'd like to do now is invite you to a reception and encourage you to enjoy the music.